when I started to realize the type of person in terms of my character that I wanted to have, which was just as simple as being a person of my word and being a good, positive person in the world, creating like the world that I want to live in. And what I wanted in my life and what I could see, it was immediately clear that cash flow was everything to me. And that's why it's important to me. And that's why it is so important to so many of our clients, because so many of us just do what we don't want to do and work for people we don't want to work for, in things that we don't believe in, for the money. And when you don't have to worry about the money anymore, you can elevate up and become who you're supposed to be. G'day guys, welcome to episode 4.
I think we're on episode 4 now, yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. It's my favourite number 4. So it's going to be a good one.
Nice, yeah, special day for you.
Always.
We're recording at my house today just because the sound's a bit better. Simon's brought over mum's dog that's just been attacked by my cat. My brother-in-law's dog's out the back as well. My dog's out the back.
We've got a little petting zoo going on here.
I've just fully realised again that my cat is a beautiful psychopath. It's fully just stalked mum's little dog, and the second we walked out of its sight, it went after it.
As soon as I walked out of the room, it's just like I hear my dog yelping like that quickly. It was hilarious. But that's animal nature for you, I guess, right?
I'm excited about this video because we've talked about timing, we've talked about our thoughts on capital growth in the previous 2 eps, and today we're going to talk about the fact that cash is key. And there is nobody that's ever gone bankrupt having too much cash flow in their life, too much passive income, or too much security on such a low risk position. It's normally the opposite of that gets us into trouble as business people and investors.
Yeah, seriously. I need to have cash in my life, cash flow through my assets as well, just to sleep well at night as well. So we'll be talking about a few different things, why it's important to us, obviously the fundamentals that we're looking for, how we actually achieve it, how you can use timing to increase your cash flow return as well, and a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah, so, I sort of think back to my position 4 years ago. At that time, I thought, the person with the most number of properties won. I know that is so strange for me to think now, but that's where I was at. And so I think at that point I had 8 or 9 properties. Almost all of them were single incomes. All of them were negatively geared. Or producing a small amount of passive cash flow, which across the aggregate with my own home didn't really result in much left over. And I started to read some different ideas and start to put a different strategy together. And I went, shit, I've ended up creating a great portfolio that will make me wealthy in the future, but it's not going to get me financially free, and it's not going to get me the choices that I want now.
It's really funny. I talked to... probably at least 16 new people each week on a first strategy session, talking about where it is that they want to be in the future and what sort of long-term position they see themselves in. And a very common answer is, well, I want to have 4 properties, 6 properties, 10 properties. It's a property number figure. More often than not, it's an amount of properties. And I go, cool, okay, so what do you want those properties to do for you? And they're like, silence. No, they don't know what they want the properties to do for them. And this is the idea of cash being key, because cash is what's going to provide you with a passive income for life. It's going to get you out of the job that you hate or give you the choices that you want at an earlier age. So that's why we love it so much.
I think for me, that is exactly it. When I had my meltdown a few years back after our trip to the States and just straight up drinking too much, I think it affected my brain.
I apologize for that.
It's a real good time while I was doing it. But then it's what I realized is at that time, I didn't know who I was anymore. And the psychologist that I went and saw said, Ben, you are your day-to-day choices. And your choices end up shaping your destiny, and you are the values that you move towards. And at the time I went,
that's a lot to hear.
Much. But now I'm my values are to spend more time with my family. I've been a really slack friend in the last few years, but to make more time for friends in the coming year, to have meaningful work in my life the choice to work less. You know, Simon's almost at 4 days a week now. I'm at 4 days a week in my role. To have an unusual amount of holidays per year, like we both work best off mini breaks and consistent and lots of them. You know, I want to do more volunteer work. I want to take some of the profit in the business over the next year and put it into some foundations that we've been looking at. Like I want travel in my life. I still like material things. Like I still want to live in a nice home near the beach, and I still want to have a full drive in a caravan to take off on the weekends and explore. And so when I started to realize the type of person in terms of my character that I wanted to have, which was just as simple as being a person of my word and being a good, positive person in the world, creating like the world that I want to live in, and what I wanted in my life and what I could see, it was immediately clear that cash flow was everything to me. And that's why it's important to me. And that's why it is so important to so many of our clients, because so many of us just do what we don't want to do and work for people we don't want to work for, in things that we don't believe in, for the money. And when you don't have to worry about the money anymore, you can elevate up and become who you're supposed to be.
100%. It puts you into so many different positions as well. It opens up so many different doors when you focus on a dual strategy, incorporating capital growth and cash flow, which we'll get into. But yeah, my philosophy is the exact same. Like I don't need to say that I've got $10 million worth of property to anybody. But tell you what I'd love to say is that I get paid $100,000 to $150,000 per year without even having to open my eyes. You know, like
that's crazy. I cannot wait for that day.
Yeah, it's great. So the passive income goal is super important to me, to have those choices. It's as simple as that for me. Like I just want choices, because I don't know what my life's going to look like in 5 years, in 10 years, certainly not in 15 or 20 years from now. But I know if I have a passive income that's going to enable me to live the life that I enjoy living today, which is why I'm looking to replace my current income, life's going to be bloody good, right? And this is what we work towards. So our long-term plan is to generate a passive income for life, so that we can have these choices and do what we want. So there's a number of different ways that we can obviously get to that goal, but you start with, okay, well, I want to replace my current annual salary. And then you figure out how you can reverse engineer that into a step-by-step process in order for you to get there. And things change. Like my strategy's just changed purely because of information. You learn new information and you go for it. You know, we've just found out from Phil Anderson that he believes that we're coming into the second half of the real estate cycle, and he says it's time to go buy assets. Everything that he's said to date has come to fruition. Everything that he's said has come true. So understanding this, trusting him, I'm going out there and buying more assets instead of converting my current assets into higher cash flow properties, because right now cash flow is not the issue for me. Right now I have an asset issue. And this is what I talk to a lot of people in strategy sessions about. It's like, okay, well, what is your biggest issue right now? What do you need to plug? Right now, I don't need the cash flow, because I'm happy to sacrifice the amount of time that I do to earn the income that I do, to help the people that I do. I want that in my life. You know, I'm young, I'm hungry, I want it. But I need to make sure that I'm working towards setting myself up so I don't have to continue to do that forever.
I love that, bro. You know, my portfolio has been the same. Like when I got to that point with the 9 properties, I transitioned and I actually sold 7 of them, and I went to two properties, which I swear like I went through an ego death back then. Like it was the best thing that's ever happened to me, but I was like a little child on the bathroom floor, just in the cold shower, just fragile for years. But I've like rebuilt myself on like a different model, and the new model is I went out and bought some homes exactly the same as Simon, and it's only been this year that I've really started to work on cash flow and setting it up. And you know, now that I'm in a position that by the end of this year I'll have a few houses and a few granny flats doing their thing, and a good tax benefit, and low maintenance properties, and a bit of passive income starting to come in that's going to be meaningful to cover like a lot of my expenses in my life. It's like, well, what do you do? Like, do you stop and just, you know, jump on a beach? Fuck, that's just not for me. Like, I get to go to the beach 4 days a week anyway. Yeah. Like, I want to continue to like I'm on the beach. Like my life is the beach.
Yeah.
And this is what I've realized through all of this growth. Like if you can make your day-to-day life one that you're proud of, which cash flow absolutely helps, then the holidays aren't an escape. They're just the cherry on top of a better lifestyle. And I truly am excited about that for us and for our clients that are following similar ideas into the future, that one day we will all be in a place with the choices that we want to make. But trust me, as a person that's achieved what you're supposed to in basically every single part of my life now, it's fucking hollow, and you are exactly the same asshole that you are the day before, looking in the mirror with all of the same fears and insecurities and all of the same stuff going on. So it's like Simon and I are trying to take this approach, which is like, let's enjoy the journey and still be focused on the future and still trust that it's all working for us as well.
Yeah, legit. Like just surrendering to the universe has been a really powerful thing for both of us this year, I think. Like just recognizing that there is way more at play than what we have control over, and just accepting that, you know, put the right habits in play. Maybe that's a different podcast.
I was just thinking about the podcast you shared with me this morning, which we won't talk about on this one, but there's heaps of things at play globally at the moment. We'll just say that.
Yeah, for sure. But let's talk a little bit more about the fundamentals, because there is a bunch of ways that you can go out there and get cash flow. But we're not going to talk about all of them, because to us, one of the fundamentals is capital growth, and the recent podcast that we did is based on capital growth. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, please go out there. There's a wrestling match going out there with a Labrador and a Golden Retriever.
Just smashed him into the glass.
And one of the things is capital growth isn't worth sacrificing to us, because it is one of the most important aspects of being a successful property investor. And if you can think outside the box, and if you can incorporate some unique strategies and timing into your plan, then you can definitely get a combination of capital growth and cash flow. So why don't we break down a little bit more on how we can actually achieve it?
You know, one of the ways that Simon and I achieve it is focusing on markets first. So if you want cash flow, but you want to spend $2 million and buy on Bondi Beach in Sydney, you need to understand that you can go do that, but you're only going to get $600 a week, $700 a week in rent return, and therefore you're going to be sitting at about a 1.5% yield. Now, for me, that automatically rules out certain markets in Australia. Like I'm not prepared to settle for that, because yes, you might have unusually high growth, but I don't want to be bleeding 60 grand, 70 grand a year on today's interest rates to hopefully make money down the line. And so market is super important. Like right now you can jump on SQM's research or CoreLogic's, and you can see the markets in Australia with the best rent returns, and you can see which capital cities are getting these rent returns. I know Hobart's high at the moment. Adelaide, Perth are high at the moment. I know Brisbane and parts of southeast Queensland are exceptionally high at the moment based on house prices versus average rents. And that's not citywide. Like there's suburbs in Adelaide and Hobart and Brisbane that are worth $1 million where the rent returns are horrible. But there's also suburbs in all of those cities that are worth $300K or $500K that rent for $350 to $550 a week.
That are still going to give you solid capital growth over the longer term if you focus on the right fundamentals. Houses, big blocks of land as close to the city that you can afford, or close to the water. You know, looking at all of these things. But I love what you're talking about just there with all of those examples of places that have strong rental yields right now, and they're all of the markets that haven't had much significant short-term growth as well. So that kind of plays into what we wanted to talk about, timing. So obviously, if you haven't had much capital growth in a city for a while, then your rental yields are likely to be slightly stronger. So that's why you're going to get stronger rental yields in Brisbane right now, in Perth, in Adelaide, because these markets have sat completely flat and are now more affordable today compared to 10 years ago when you factor in inflation. So when you buy at the bottom of a market, not only is it great for your capital growth potential, but it's also much better for your yield from a yield perspective as well.
What normally happens is houses and rents, or land values or property values and rents, play this constant game of like kiss and catch, really. Like it's kind of like house prices move, they get expensive, people stop investing in those areas, the rents slowly catch up over time, then the rents might be attractive, the investors and home buyers come back into the market, creates more capital growth. And it's this constant thing. Now, as Simon said, when you're strategically timing the markets you buy in, you have a much higher chance of achieving a better gain. Now, if I look at the 35 odd suburbs we're buying at the moment in southeast Queensland, the worst result of the most expensive suburb right now would still be a 3.5% to 4% return before you do anything like adding bedrooms, renovating properties, or potentially even adding a secondary dwelling if you legally can in that area.
So what are some of the advanced strategies that we can do as well to manufacture our own cash flow as well? This is a powerful one as well. You know, you don't always just have to think that what you buy is what you get. You can get your hands a little bit dirty. You can think outside the box like I was talking about.
I love that, bro. Like, there's probably 4 main things that we help people do. Now, in our business, there's 2 really clear client pathways. One of them is to buy really high quality properties that are more considered blue chip in great areas with the intention of either holding them short term, medium term, or long term, and then selling them for a big profit. The other option is something that you're going to hold for the rest of your lifetime, produce a passive income in retirement, create choices sooner, and pass on to your kids, which is more the house and granny flat dual income strategy we talk about now. Within that, we can do a bunch of things. And, you know, one of the first 4 things would be to buy a home in an unrenovated condition, just like a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom home, and give it a tidy up. Now, there's a suburb 10 k's of the city of Brisbane called Arana Hills, which we love. Incredibly high quality area, incredibly wealthy people. On paper, one of the most beautiful suburbs you'll see anywhere in the world right now. Now, you could buy a home for 550k. These dogs are going off. In this suburb, and you know, for that money, if it was unrenovated, you might only get yourself $350 a week in rent. But you could go out there and maybe buy a place for 550 or 600k. You could add 50 to 70 grand, making it look fresh. New kitchen, bathrooms, internal, external paint, lights, flooring, all of that simple stuff. And then that property might all of a sudden jump to 450 or 500 bucks a week in rent. So that is a huge opportunity to what we call renovate or manufacture cash flow.
Love it. And then obviously the house and granny flat strategy as well, which would be buying a high quality house in an area where you can build a granny flat in the backyard and rent it out separately. Or even some of the opportunities where you can still just buy the house, build the granny flat and rent them out together. Is one of those unique opportunities that we've been playing with our property manager recently in different parts of Brisbane as well.
Yeah, because, you know, one thing we've found from looking at Michael Matusik's and the ABS data is at least 30% of the households in Australia's major capital cities are completely underserved from the type of property that they want, which is affordable, high quality family accommodation for multi-generations. So that might mean me in there with my parents, or it might mean parents in there with mature age kids, or, you know, teenagers, or the grandparents out the back. And so that type of opportunity is not being catered for. And in some areas where you can legally build a granny flat, there might be an opportunity to do something like that. Now, another huge thing that we've seen in Sydney and Brisbane is buying 3-bedroom homes with 1 bathroom and converting them into 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes on like a single story. Or even in Brisbane at the moment, you know, buying the old school Queenslander with the 3 bedrooms upstairs that's been filled in downstairs. And even though it wouldn't be legal bedrooms or bathrooms down there, it would still be very, very functional space. And I've seen in some instances people paying as much as 50 to 100 bucks a week more just to have that usable downstairs space. And same with sheds. Like in some suburbs around Australia, big home sites with big car accommodation or boat accommodation is just so hard to come by. Sometimes you can whack a shed on for $8,000 that you find secondhand on Gumtree, and you might be able to get as much as $100 a week extra in rent.
Seriously, so you just really got to think, coming back to it again, just think slightly outside of the box, and don't just think that all you got to do is go out there and buy a house. You know, treat it like a business. Think about all the different ways, all the different things that you can implement to get yourself a stronger return, because that's all that we're really looking to do here. But definitely don't go out there and discount cash flow. Make sure that your strategy is based on incorporating some cash flow. If it's not short term, then definitely long term. You know, if you've got a negatively geared portfolio, it's just going to force you to be working forever. You know, if it's not going to pay for itself, then you have to work to pay for it.
You know, the difference there is some of us are prepared to pay P&I for the next 30 years and in 30 years' time arrive at financial freedom. For me and Simon, we're really looking to do this in a 7 to 10 year period of time. So we have to be more active in our approach to investing. We have to be more strategic and systemized in our approach to buying houses. Like, I've had this conversation with my wife last night. She's really got her heart set on at the moment buying a new property, and I don't know what's fueling it, and it's completely okay, but I'm trying to understand it. And what she's got her heart set on now is like finding a place in a area close to the beach, but a big like hectare of property, and then building a home and having the kids grow up on acreage, which is how she grew up. Now, I've been sort of saying to her, like, where's this coming from? Why is this important to you? We've already got more than we want, and that's not going to make us any happier. But outside of that, I've started to be like, well, if we're going to do something like that, then here is the strategic criteria that this property has to hit. And I gave her a list of about 20 things last night, and she sort of said, well, I think I got to sleep on this for a while now because, you know, I don't know why this is even relevant or important, but I suppose like she was just thinking about jumping into another property, and that was enough for her if we found something that met her boxes, where I'm thinking, oh, this is why it's important, sorry. I'm thinking that I want us to be actually financially free in the next 7 years, and how is that property going to help us get there? I'm thinking it's more debt. It's more expensive. It's not going to necessarily improve the quality of our life. In fact, it's further away from the lifestyle that I want. It's further away from the friends. It's further away from the office. It's further away from the kids' school. And I think about all of these things now as an investor that I never used to think of back in the day. Now, I remember back in the GFC when I was 24 years of age in Sydney, and I was starting my graduate program with IBM. And I was looking for mentors hard at that stage. Now, back then I used to have a goal of going and speaking to 3 people every week, which I'd been doing for about the 2 years before that, and I kept doing for another 2 years after. And I just went chasing business people and wealthy investors and sat down with them and asked them questions. And I was at TAFE studying project management at night, and this guy that I met was in the yacht club at Cronulla, and he introduced me to another guy because I was always asking people like, who should I talk to? Now, this guy I didn't end up knowing, but he was the developer that owned Wanda.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But it was in the GFC. He knew it was the wrong time to bring the project to life, which he brought it to life 5 years after and made 100% more on his money. It came to life in 2017 at the very top.
If anybody's been to Cronulla Beach and seen the new part of the suburb that's opened up just behind the school in the north side of Cronulla, this is where we're talking about.
You know, every house would be selling for 2 to 5 mil there type thing. It is an incredibly high quality piece of land. And he was basically having at that time, as the developer that had massive debt on it in a GFC, he had to actually go back to work. Now, his job in that market, he basically bought a book off a financial planner of, I think there was 600 or 700 properties. And he basically rang every single owner and said, we're in a GFC, cash flow is everything. Let me go around to your property for free. I'll give you a complete list of what we can do to add cash flow to the property. And then I will get you into a position as quickly as possible where any bleed in your portfolio is maintained so that you can survive this and thrive on the other side, because he knew the cycle. He said, trust me, I know what's coming. We just need to get you through this. Now, it added massive value to the clients. It enabled him to keep his head above water by earning a couple of $100,000 a year in referrals from the builders that he was organising. And all of the things that he was doing was small renovations, adding bedrooms and bathrooms, legally filling in areas and adding secondary dwellings for people. And he probably saved 400 out of those 600 investors.
And this is the thing, cash flow really does reduce your risk. You know, like when you've got a property that pays for itself, if you do fall into financial hardship or some, you know, external event puts you in a position where you can no longer work, and if you've got a property that pays for itself, it's not going to force you to have to sell this. You're going to be able to hold through it through these tougher times. When we see an increase in interest rates, which it's going to happen at some point in time,
It's
guys.
definitely gonna happen.
They're not going to stay at these levels forever.
Although the Australian government has said they will stay for at least the next 3 to 4 years at these levels. So
I heard
don't
5,
stress.
but that's amazing. But they will come up. So when they do, the higher the cash flow, the easier it's going to be for you to support this. Having a cash flow positive portfolio is going to enable you to continue to save deposits faster, to continue investing sooner.
Or to pay off debt faster. Like I just use all the passive cash flow to wipe the debt on my portfolios faster. And it is a beautiful thing to watch your tenant pay off your home for you. Like it is just honestly one of the nicest things to see. There's so many reasons we do this personally, and reducing our risk is the number one thing. But it has also helped me from going from 9 properties, 7 of them or 6 of them being negatively geared, to 4 properties with all of them being significantly positively geared by the end of this year. I enjoy the journey so much more. I sleep so much better. Now, there's a time and a place. Like I had to accumulate, then add the cash flow because I knew that the market was going to run over the next 7 years.
Yeah.
And Simon's doing the same thing, but I would be shocked if by the middle of next year you're not coming back to those properties and adding the cash flow that you want to be adding at that time.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. As soon as I possibly can, I will. But what I've recognised is there is an asset gap in my portfolio at the moment. And one thing that I've recognised is these properties are going to grow in value at a much faster rate than it is for me to convert my properties into positive cash flow. You know, the cost to turn my properties into positive cash flow is going to cost what it is, regardless if it's now or in 2 or 3 years from now. But if I delay the purchase of the properties, then I'm going to be having to pay a much higher price for them. So it all comes back to strategy. It all comes back to a plan. Personal circumstance comes into it a lot as well, depending on the income, the stage of life that you're at, etc. So it's really important to have these types of conversations and figure it out for yourself and see where you're at and where you want to be. But, you know, sit down and have a good think to yourself, or, you know, sit down and have a drink with your partner and think and ask yourselves a question, you know, what do we want to be doing? What sort of life do we want to be living in 10 or 15 years time from now? And if it's to tell your friends that you've got $10 million worth of property, then go out there and do that. But I'm assuming that if you're listening to this podcast, you also want choices and freedom at an earlier age than the average, and cash flow is going to get you there.
You know what's interesting, man, like hearing you say that is last night, like I was having like a bit of a mini meltdown because because I do.
Happens every week.
Yeah. Because I was sitting there and I was like, part of my personality is a pleaser.
Yeah.
Part of my personality is a FOMO. Part of me is just like a kid that gets so excited about anything new and shiny, because like the world is a candy store to me and my life is like figuring it out and just touching everything and feeling it all and just having fun with it. And part of it is I want my wife to be super stoked and I want my kids to grow up super happy.
Of course.
And it's like I'm sitting there and it wasn't like a meltdown. It was more every decision that I'm making now, because I know in 4 years' time, for me, like it's actually 4 years away. Like I want to be financially free, like in the way that I want to be. And I've never been that close or been this specific on how I'm going to get there. And so when my wife is like, well, let's just spend a lot of money on this and maybe we'll just keep the house near the beach just in case we don't like it. I'm looking down the barrel of 10 more years of work, which I'm going to continue to do this work for the rest of my life because I'm obsessed with what we do and helping people like we do, and that small number of amazing people we get to work with each month. But it's also like, I know that my highest and best use of my life is not to pay off debt over 30 years.
No.
And I'm staring, and that's why I was sitting there going, how the fuck am I going to say that to Lise?
It's like, another $1 million worth of debt or
something like that probably.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm like, and I know the trap of more isn't making me happier anymore. And so when you take away that, plus you know who you are, plus you're happy with what you've got and no more is going to change it, it really flipped me out.
Yeah, of course.
And I was just like, shit. How do you have conversations where for 10 years, all we've done is chase the next and go, like John Lennon said, like, I'm just watching the wheels go round and round. Like, I don't want to be on that train anymore that she's on, but we're so used to doing it, and it's such a fun thing that we do together, creating something from nothing, that it's confronting, bro. It's really intense. And I know so many of you guys listening to this are on different pages.
Yeah, of course. And we talk about that all the time. You know, when you set a goal and you're very goal oriented and driven and focused and you're a doer, there were a few things that you left out of your personality type.
Yeah.
But we create a plan, and as humans, once we've achieved it, this recognition of, oh, I'm not any happier, oh, well, I need more. And
more will fill the hole.
Yeah, and you keep pushing the can further down the road, or you just keep watching the wheels go round and round. And eventually, this is why, you know, the hierarchy of needs, the top is self-actualization, which has absolutely nothing to do with money, because self-actualization is actually realizing that all you needed the whole time was yourself.
Completely.
And all of this stuff that we've been chasing isn't going to fill any voids, but it's still tough to achieve something and then go, okay, well, I've done that now. It's time to move on to the next thing, because all you've been doing for 10 years is chasing that one thing. And I think about that, like, honestly, I think I want to do a Netflix documentary. I want to write a book to help. Boom, announced it.
Boom, it's going to happen. Netflix, bring it. I'm going to do a book. Like, me and Simon are going to write one together. And I'm like, if I have to spend the next 7 years busting my ass to pay off non-income producing debt for a house that lease is going to be over in 3 years again anyway, I'm just like, it's not for me. And it's like, it's really hard to have that combo, and it's really confronting. But like, when you start to understand who you are and what you want, and that enough is enough. And it's like, also the flip side of that is, you know, like Simon said, we've got a directly clear path on, you know, the goals we want to achieve, the debt we want to pay off this year, next year, the properties we might want to add to our portfolio, where we'll be if we do that activity. And Simon's the same. It's like, we're not just sitting here doing nothing, hoping that the universe just puts it all in our lap. There's a massive action component too. But, you know, I feel sorry for the dudes that never get off the train. I feel sorry for people that go and get $100,000 a year worth of income when that's all they wanted to achieve. And then instead of enjoying it and making the change in their life that they started out for, they go, well, fuck it, I'm going to 300 now. And it's just a zero-win game. And I was talking to one of our clients, Matt, the other day, who has literally just basically been in an ashram in India on and off for the last 20 years, and is basically like worked with all of those sorts of people for that time, never chasing money. He's like,
the Zen Master.
You just end up with nothing. It's all going to leave you. And in his words, like, you will pass away. So what are you here for? And he says, like, the purpose of his life is to have the maximum positive impact and to live the most happy, peaceful, love-filled life he can possibly have. And I know that's a lot, but that's sort of like the vibe that I'm going for. And I'm not living like that every day, but I'm slowly making progress towards it. And that,
for sure,
it feels a lot more right than going out and just having a nicer property so that when friends come over once every fortnight, I'm like, fucking why? Like, that's what I'm dealing with. Yeah,
we have a lot bigger purpose as well, and we have the luxury of giving back and adding value to people every single day in what we do. But, you know, I feel as though we're moving to a point where we really want to, like, we have these laser clear goals that we know exactly what we need to do to live this life, and we know exactly what is required for us to achieve that. But then, you know, we've got partners that aren't on the exact same path as well, because they're on their own path. And then it's trying to like intertwine them so that you can continue to do the things that you really want. But
see, Liz is already living like the Zen Master. And this is the thing, like, I'm like, babe, just like, another project is actually a bit stressful for me, and sometimes the stress might feel like an old anxiety feeling, and then I'm like, ooh, it's a bit uncomfortable, I don't really want to feel that. But it's like, she is living proof of like just being in flow with everything. And I'm like, I'm trying to get in this lifetime to that point, and I'm like, I just don't know how me working 80 hours a week and thinking about this shit at night is going to serve me getting there.
No, and that's what I was going to get at. Like, the reason that we want to have this is so that we can give back in a bigger way, rather than doing it for ourselves. We're setting ourselves up so that we can continue giving back to the world, but at a super, super young age as well. Like, you know, if we can achieve this 4 years from now, you're going to be under the age of 40. My goal is sort of 7 years from now, which is under the age of 35 for myself. And it's really allowing us to spend a lot of our life giving back in so many different ways, whether that be through education or whether that be through certain charities or non-for-profits and things like this. And, you know, the reason that I'm saying this is the cash is the only thing that's going to enable us to live this life. The amount of zeros that we have on our portfolio isn't going to do it. The amount of cash that we have to give back and to give us the time that we need to be able to do the things that we should is exactly what we want.
I love that, man. Like, I was listening to some Tony Robbins stuff this morning that he probably recorded 15 years ago when he was in his 40s. And it said, you know, my first goal was in my 20s to become a person that could help anyone improve their mental position and state. He's like, in my 30s, my goal was to take that information I'd learned and work with people one-on-one and small groups and become the best in the world, which he did. And then he said, in my 40s, my goal was to work with bigger groups. In my 50s, it was to work with even bigger groups. And in my 60s was to spend all of my time giving back. And he even mentioned politics, which I was like, imagine Tony Robbins was the president of the United States. But it was like, whoa, this guy's like clear on where he wanted to be. And it was a vision for the type of character and impact in a positive way he wanted to have. He didn't say that he wanted to be a billionaire, but adding so much value to so many people's lives in such a big scale for so long enabled him to do that.
Get to where he didn't know but ended up.
Cash flow is important, and he could never have done that unless he started with a base level of financial freedom through his business, and he's just reinvested and reinvested and reinvested. But he's got now like 3 companies that do over $1 billion a year of revenue. I think he's given 400 million meals now or something like that, like the most incredible positive impact on the world. And it's like, I go, like, this is what I think about it. I love cash flow. I love the fact that it will give you these choices. I love the fact that you're only 7 to 15 years away from it, depending on what you're earning and the quality of your plan. And I love more than anything else right now that Brisbane is dirt cheap. And I can buy these properties like people were buying 20 years ago in Sydney and adding granny flats to them, that will double in value in the next 20 years, that will produce $1,000 a week of income for me with the granny flat, and that will set my kids and their kids up for their lives. Like, that's an exciting and inspiring position to be in. And Simon and I want to help you guys do that, or we want to help the best of you do that. We want to help a small number of you guys do that each week, each month, and each year. And we want to, you know, get you on your journey so that you can inspire the people around you to do the same.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much for listening to us, guys. I know that we went off on a few different tangents, but
had a little meltdown there.
The reason being is we're passionate about this, and we really want this for ourselves and for everybody else. And it is so much bigger than just having cash flow, is what we're trying to get at here. It isn't just about having the cash flow. It's about what that cash flow is going to enable you to do as a person. And if that is just to kick back on a beach drinking pina coladas, then go out there and do it. Or if that's about changing the world, then go out there and do that as well. But once again, appreciate you listening to this podcast. Please give us a like. Please subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and share this with somebody that may need to hear it.
Appreciate it, bro.
Eddie.
Oh, that's good. That's so nice.